Hello, my name is Gideon,
And my name is Jake.
and our severe weather project was on the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Picture this. Campers are gathered around a fire one night singing a song about how a cow tipped over a lantern and started a great fire. While it may sound far-fetched, it might just be true. Some general information about the fire is that it happened in Illinois and it lasted from October 8th to October 10th, 1871. It lasted approximately 36 hours. It started in or around the O'Leary shed, and it's unknown how the fire started. However, one of the popular myths is that it started due to the cow tipping over the lantern that was left in the shed. Some of the primary impacts is a loss of about 1/3 of the city, including over 17,000 buildings, over 2,000 acres of land, as well as the loss of the entire business district. It also killed nearly 300 people and left over 100,000 people homeless. We can see from this map, this is the area in red that was burnt and everything else was left untouched, and that's approximately 1/3 of the city. Another set of primary impacts is a massive loss of records, including deeds, birth certificates, business certificates, etc., making it difficult for people to prove ownership of houses, businesses, citizenship, etc. There was also a massive loss of businesses, which for many families was their main source of income. Some of the negative secondary impacts include a health decline because of the fire producing so much particles and dust. Many families and people breathed them in, which caused them to have health problems. Additionally, there was an increase in lawsuit for compensation for items lost in the fire, which resulted in many of the insurance companies to become bankrupt. Some of the more positive secondary impacts include instituting new building codes were put into place, which required fire-resistant materials to be used, such as stone, brick, steel, etc. There was also a rapid construction growth, building the city back up in about 2 years to being even better than what it was prior. There was also new architectural ideas and buildings put into place, including skyscrapers. There was also an increase in job opportunities available, which grew the city population from 300,000 before the fire to over 1 million. In terms of preparedness, the city wasn't very prepared for the fire. It had never seen a fire that large before, and the city was built mainly of wooden materials due to the fast growingness of the city. So it was crowded as well as had mainly wooden material, which fueled the fire. Furthermore, the firefighting technology at the time was not enough to handle the fire. Additionally, there was a fire the night before, which left the firefighters as well as the technology and equipment exhausted, which had a negative impact on the fire and kept it from being sorted out. Some of the mitigation and adaptation strategies. In terms of mitigation, while the building codes encouraged the use of brick and stones, it wasn't enforced, which is why most of them were built out of wood and other flammable materials. Furthermore, the firefighters, fire alarms, and water pumping facilities at the time were very spread out throughout the city. So where the fire had started and where it was spreading, there wasn't anything really close, which caused the firefighters to not be able to put it out so quickly, which caused it to grow as much as it did. In terms of adaptation, this was something really cool to research, and what I found the most interesting was the use of gunpowder throughout it. You would think that the gunpowder would fuel the fire, but it actually did the opposite. It allowed the firefighters to blow up certain buildings that were in the path of the fire, which caused it to stop and not spread through other parts of the city. In terms of the weather during the time, it was unusually hot and dry in Chicago. So you can see here on the map, Chicago is around here, and you can see it's in the red, which is above the 80s. So at the time, it was extremely hot and unusually dry. There was a lack of rainfall for the weeks prior. And widespread alerts just weren't a thing during the time. So the firefighters didn't get to the fire as quickly as they could because they didn't know about it. However, the use of word of mouth, watchmen, and alarm boxes would tell the firefighters about the fire, and then the word of mouth would get the citizens out of there quicker than usual. So in terms of the climate during the time, like we said, it was unusually hot, but also there was a 3-month drought at the time, which as of 2021 was the second driest stretch that Chicago has seen. Furthermore, wind played a large factor in the fire, with winds being around 15 to 25 miles per hour on those days. So a mix of the temperature, the dryness, as well as the wind is what caused the fire to spread as much as it did.
We're coming to the CO2 impacts of the fire itself. Because this took place during the Industrial Revolution, we can't exactly measure how it had an effect on climate change itself. But as we can see in the graph, right in between 1850 and the 1900, you can see that the CO2 emissions are slowly going up, reaching a peak in 2020. Furthermore, as we've stated before, the city was built largely out of wood to meet the rapid demand for housing and infrastructure in the city, which included buildings, sidewalks, and even roads. This created a very dangerous and fire-prone environment. Some impacts from the Industrial Revolution itself. The city focused on growth rather than safety. As National Geographic described it, the old wooden infrastructure may have slowed the industrial growth and development of the lands for both residential and commercial use. While Chicago Architecture Center described it that the many other businesses simply ignored the new building laws. Wood often replaced stone, and builders decorated their buildings with wooden awnings, cupolas, and cornices rather than stone, brick, or even steel. Some positive outcomes that came out of it. While the fire destroyed the entirety of the business district of Chicago, the fire left the stockyards and the new packing plants in the south side untouched, allowing for them to expand further. Agriculture and trade industries also kept the city's finances stable and provided for more employment. The railroads were mainly left undamaged, allowing for aid shipments to happen throughout the country, receiving shipments from areas like California all the way to Florida itself. We even saw some international help in that of England, as they provided book donations, which helped bring about Chicago's first free public library. Some more changes regarding the rebuilding and the architectural development of the city itself. The new building codes required better, less flammable resources and actually started enforcing it. They began to use these less flammable resources like terracotta. They used it for roofing designs themselves, like in the awnings, and even in insulation. The buildings began to have more stories due to the sturdiness of the new materials as they introduced more steel into it. Within 10 years after the fire was put out, they began building 8 to 10-story skyscrapers. This also provided many opportunities for architects, providing an architectural boom, allowing them to show off more designs. Furthermore, they even, in some cases, they began building a lot of the buildings before the architects had fully designed them, which provided a lot of adaptation and provided more experience for the architects to adapt. Lastly, they provided more advancements in firefighting technology, allowing for a better telegraph system for the alarms. And what was left unchanged? Buildings, homes, and factories, anything that was left untouched by the fire remained unchanged. The reason being is that it's so old that in order to rebuild or to restructure it, they would have to tear the buildings down. An example of this can be seen in Old Town Chicago, as they narrowly avoided the new boundaries that were enforced by a singular block.
So in summary, the fire lasted for about 36 hours on October 8th through October 10th of 1871. Furthermore, the fire was fueled by the buildings being made of mostly flammable materials, including wood and other materials such as that. Additionally, it was fueled by the high temperatures at the time, the high wind speed, as well as the drought that was taking place. This caused mass homelessness and unemployment for those in the city, as well as the collapse of the business area, business district. There were some positive outcomes though, as there was more enforced building codes, an architectural boom, as well as advancement in technologies that would help firefighters with future incidents such as this to make sure that they would not have happen at this large of a scale again. Thank you, and here are our sources.